He worked with Bob Monroe at the Gateway or the Monroe Institute and did the Gateway method and a lot of different out-of-body. He refers to it as out-of-body travel, which to me, I don't know what's the difference between that and remote viewing to a certain extent and how real it feels to be there. But it does feel like that to me. Like I'll have the meditative experience where I feel like I'm sort of guiding things with my intention, but then there's sort of a moment where suddenly I realize I'm not where I was visualizing or intent on at all. And suddenly I find myself standing here. I'm like on the beach or the ocean, and there's a doorway and there's this someone on the other side, and they're trying to communicate with me, or some sort of a phenomenal encounter that sometimes feels very, very realistic and very physical, or has transcendent information that surprises me, like a tremendous download of knowledge or different things like that. So is that similar to you? Relatable?
That's a lot like a lot of the experience I had in the classic psychic techniques. In remote viewing, for me, I might be different for other people because we're all different, but for me it's a completely different format. And I think that is because of using controlled remote viewing, and it's put me in a process where it's filtered, and I'm very much in control of the entire flow of the data and the process 100%. Whereas the other ways, I think there's an element of spontaneity in that the process decides what happens to you.
Kind of envelops and takes over. Yeah. I think that's been my experience to date. I haven't had as many controlled intent remote viewing experiences as I sort of get enveloped in an encounter.
I think the control mechanism we got through controlled remote viewing and its derivatives may act a bit like a filtering process as well, with the control. So you don't get too much happen. You don't generally get too much happening to you all at once. And I think that maybe also because the bandwidth for consciousness is very small. The kind of aperture to the target is a tiny little hole. So I don't think all that data can massively come through at once using the remote viewing techniques.
Right. So whereas like in regular meditation, you're going into maybe an openness where you're sort of like a radio signal, just going open to see, is there any signals out there to receive? And here's my antenna to come and receive that signal and interface with. Whereas with cognitive remote viewing, you're sort of providing a framework or a scaffolding where you're turning the dial and tuning into a particular target, which is the random double-blind numbers that you're given, sort of as a symbolic subconscious director or pointer.
Yeah. If I could visualize it, or if I had to describe it in a picture form, I would say the classical techniques are you'd be just like a full body glowing aura out there, radiating from every part of your body type way of interacting with whatever you're interacting with. Whereas when you're doing it with remote viewing, it's almost like from your third eye type area or something. I would visualize a laser-like beam of focus only going to the target, and that would be the only connection point for that very small pencil-like laser beam.
Like normally day to day, everybody walking around is like a regular light bulb, and they just flip the switch on. They get up, they have a diffused awareness of their reality of their day to day around them. But as a CRV remote viewer with a specific targeted task, you're taking that and focusing it in almost like a laser beam to look at a specific point in time or a specific target or person or place to try and get that information directly rather than just where you're at here and now.
Yeah, and because the focus point is specific and it's direct and it's it's small laser like instead of this diffused kind of approach of getting bits and pieces from all over the place. That's why as remote viewers the data seems to come in small, very small clusters and chunks that we build up over the hour or so we're doing the remote viewing, so that we get an expansive picture, or we essentially build up a virtual reality picture of the target in our heads and in our consciousness from all the data that builds up during the hour that we're doing it.
So if you're on a team of remote viewers, there might be 4 or 5 different people, and they might all come back with different pieces, almost like
that seems to happen a lot.
like different eyes on the same head, all looking at the same thing from a different perspective, or?
Yes, and this is something else that which is over the last 20 years is just mind blowing me. Really, I've come to the realization that it seems as though there is some kind of intelligence or consciousness behind what drives the remote viewing process. In that, if I'm working with a team of viewers, and we do this quite a lot, 4 or 5 remote viewers all looking at the same target. Summit seems to cut up the target and says, okay, Daz over here, I want him to focus on that. Edward over here, I want him to focus on this. And this guy over here to focus on that. You might get a very small part where there's overlaps, but something, somehow, some kind of mechanism breaks the target up so that you all get different bits that constitute a greater picture of the target. It's not like you'll all focus on the same door of a craft. You will all go to different parts and different, and yeah. So it seems like there's some kind of intelligence behind it that controls that, and that blows me away. And not just that as well. When we think that we're getting right to the idea of understanding how remote viewing works and several other things, or like understanding how projects like ARV works, where you try to win money on horses and games, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You think you're almost there. You're doing your trials. You think, yeah, this is it. I've cracked this. I'm going to publish this, let everyone know. And then everything it just changed. It completely flip on you. It's almost like there's something there, a Joker type personality behind the scenes that says, you think you're there, you're not. Let's flip it completely on its head. And you have to start from scratch again every single time.
There's some sort of like a intelligent control trickster type of element. That blows my mind, Daz, because this is what you hear in all of the, depictions of all the ancient gods of ancient religions, and all sorts of phenomenal encounters with mankind throughout history. They don't always depict interactions with this sort of psychic phenomenon or entities as just being always straightforward, benevolent, and full of pure intelligence and love. But there's some element to it that's like, yeah, well, you think you're getting close. Like, why don't I just do this and like pull one on?
It happens too much to be coincidence. It happens to everyone. And I just see it so much. And I've seen it with my own work. It's almost like, I'm there. I got it. I really understand how this is happening now. And then the very next thing that happens, it flips on its head. And you're like, well, I'm back at stage 1. I really do not understand what went on there. So I really do think there's an intelligence there of some kind, which in itself not worries me, but it really interests me that there is this kind of mechanism there, and it can't just be chance.
I feel like we talked about earlier, when you look out into the universe or even into yourself, it's like reflective in the same way. And it reminds me, I'm that same way even within my own internal life and dialogue. You get up and you try to even do something in the physical world, and it's like, I forgot my keys, or I did this, and right when you accomplish the thing that you wanted to, you're bored of it. And it's like we almost do that within our own soul and sense of self. And I wonder if you tie this ancient teaching in with this modern take on science of like superposition and quantum entanglement, if this idea of the subconscious realms are sort of aspects of human conscious, sort of in a polarized way out there, running around doing their thing in a way. Do you feel like there's another sort of Daz Smith in consciousness form that's doing remote viewing as a quantum entangled superimposed version of yourself? Or
I don't know. I haven't encountered anything that would make me think that. I'm just trying to think if I have.
I know there's stories like when Ezekiel or whatever was carried up on the wheels and saw Metatron, it was a doppelganger. Like, it was revealed, and there's so many of these encounters where it's revealed that they look just like you or something interesting.
Yeah. I haven't encountered anything like that myself, I don't think. But from reading some of the latest material I've read and that I've got from Ingo Swann in the archives, and some of the things he encountered when he telepathically remote viewed the moon. This stuff hasn't been released in public yet. He details that the races he encountered out there on the dark side of the moon had 2 sets of telepaths. They had offensive telepaths and they had defensive telepaths. So the defensive ones were there literally to stop people encroaching on the moon, and then they had the offensive ones which went out and did other stuff. And he was a proponent of writing articles and papers on that. He felt that there was an element in the universe, I don't know if it's extraterrestrial or just non-physical, that was there to hinder the development of human consciousness and telepathic powers.